Our deeds shall be known, even when our bones are dust scattered on the wind. And our names will inspire the mighty to rise.
Okay, come on. Update. How's the sound? Can you guys even hear me? Let's see. Okay, come on. Update. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully the sound is better today than yesterday. I got it going from the actual mic. Obviously you can see you're seeing a little bit more than I want you to see, but that's by design. I'm just kind of messing around today with settings. If you do pop in, feel free to start chatting. I can actually send you a link and we can talk to each other. This is not StreamYard, by the way. We're in Streamlabs. So I'm just messing with settings for future videos and stuff, okay? Let's see. Okay. So that's going to work fine there. But the problem is, I want you guys to be able to, I need to do it. I need to add a okay. So this is going to be our intro, by the way. I hope you guys like that. I know I need to add a video to it, but that's a different thing. And then we're going to come over here. And this is going to be what you guys are going to see. I need to trim up the outside of the camera just a little bit. Now, the other thing that's bothering me is that the game capture display is, it's just not there. I don't, let me see if I can add. We'll probably in a little bit do what we did last time and go ahead and do the, you guys can't even see me right now, hold on. We'll probably do what we did last time and we'll continue reading maybe another 20 pages or 30 pages from Tertullian. I noticed people seem to like that, so we'll do that. Let me know if this sounds good, guys. So please in the chat, if you're listening, let me know how the sound is. I've been messing with all this stuff offline. I just need to mess with it online just to get everything working correctly. This is just a test stream. Okay, so display is good. That's fine. I just kind of don't want the. Well, I guess there's no choice. That's how it's going to be. I don't want the time showing or that kind of stuff, but it looks like that's as good as I'm going to get. Okay. It is pretty good. Terrible. Okay. See if I can. Bam. Screen capture. Capture game. Okay. No. Change source. Game capture. Okay. It's supposed to be automatic, but I just don't trust it. All right. Okay, guys, let's see how this works. Okay. So. Let me know what you guys think. Let's see how this goes. There should be a game popping up right now. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Let's see. I set it to automatically capture the game. So if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to switch display. Come on, come on. Catch the game, catch the game. Whoever is watching this, I feel for you, because all I'm doing is checking out settings and trying different things out right now. Okay. Continue. Damn, it's not catching the game. Okay. Shit. Alright, let's figure this out. Capture. Just go over here. Done. And okay. Now the only problem with that there is that you can't see my ugly mug. So let's add my little face, shall we? Add source. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. There we go. Okay. I mean, it's not a perfect fix, and it sucks that it's not catching the game right away. How's the sound, guys? Can you guys hear the game? Is the game sounding good? Let me see.
Witness, gods!
So we are getting political here because we are playing as Egypt, trying to capture the Canaanites. And I believe... Where is Gaza? Let me see. Irk. Megiddo. Okay, here we go. So we're trying to capture this area up here. Alright.
The gods must be in fine spirits.
The gods must be in fine spirits. Alright, let's do a little quick battle here. Where are we?
Take them down! Hit them hard! To glorious battle! Strike hard!
Alright, let's see if I'm any good at this. The question is, do I need an overlay for the game stuff or for the audience for you guys? Okay, let's see.
Your forces are ready to storm the settlement. Study the enemy position well, for they may concentrate their defenses among the narrow streets. Be wary.
Never back down! Into formation!
I don't know. See, I like these games just a little bit better for these kind of videos than, let's say, if you guys have watched my second channel, and say, things like Cyberpunk. Like, I love Cyberpunk, but when I'm playing it, I'm just so engrossed that I'm not paying attention to anything or anyone else. You know? Okay.
Behold my greatness!
Start battle.
We can handle a few.
Like, with this, at least, I'm not like...
Let's march!
Let's see. Right there.
Soldiers, move! Move cautiously! For glory eternal!
Glory eternal.
Quick march! Slow the pace! Onwards!
I just think these games are... Hey, you get to think a little bit more. You're not just reacting to story.
I
And
am invincible!
just in general, it's fun. I know everybody hates this game right now, but I don't care. I love Total War, and I wasn't going to pay for this game last time. But now that the price is reduced and the game itself is actually decent, who cares?
Bloodshed!
To bloodshed. Okay.
Always ready! Spill blood!
Okay, where are we going?
Strike through! War is my calling.
Let's see. Let's fuck 'em up.
Ready to launch! Javelins away!
What are we
Spread
doing?
out! Javelins away! Spill blood!
Hey, some of my guys got their butt
I
kicked.
fear nothing!
Cowards. Okay.
Break them!
Let's ignore that right there. Okay.
Marching on! To bloodshed! Clubs! Javelins! Spill blood! Sons of Egypt! Eager for battle!
Where is their main fort? Here. Is it here? Where is the city center? Isn't it? I don't know. I can't tell.
Watch for the stampede! Hero of destiny! Slay them! Destiny calls!
You guys need some help.
For glory! I can smell their feet already! Destroy them! No warrior can best me! Slingers outnumber the head!
Look, I'm going to admit that it hasn't been the best game since Troy. It just hasn't been the best game. But it's still fun. Still playing strategy. I like Rome too. Attila plays that crap on any machine.
Victory will be my
I like
legacy.
Troy, but I like Wrath of Sparta within Troy better than Troy itself. Is Wrath of Sparta in Troy? I think so. And yes, normally this would be like a Twitch thing or something, but I don't really care right now. I just want to try out my different stuff.
Throw those javelins! God save us!
See, I don't like this that the generals are just unstoppable now. It's just so stupid. Okay,
I
take
never
that
miss.
one. And this one.
Onward!
That's supposed to be a Zerat? Okay, whatever. Okay.
For the ages! Destroy them!
In battle. Okay. And yes, I know Rome 2 also is one of the first games that had a terrible launch. Still love the game.
The gods have blessed me. Destiny calls me, and I am compelled to answer.
Okay. Save game. Alright. I'm going to hit save again because I don't trust this thing. Okay, there we go. And exit to Windows. Yeah, confirm. Okay. And then... So then this should be over here at intermission. Okay, not bad, not bad. Okay. And then let's go to chat is supposed to be going. I don't know if it is. Is chat going? Okay. Okay, now let's go. Okay. Can display. There's another one I wanted to try. Okay, so that's here. Okay. So now let's try this. And again, we're just messing around, okay? This is just what we're doing today. No. Do I want to? Let's do a little bit of him, and we'll do a little bit of the other guy. Do a little bit of useful charts in a second. Let's just see how this works. Make sure this is working. All right, you all be able to hear me? If you're in the chat, again, if you're in the chat, let me know. Let me know what you're saying, what you're thinking.
Hello and welcome to the Just and Sinner podcast. I am your host, Dr. Drew Cooper, and thank
What
you
a
so
look.
much for joining me once again on
Wonder if he ever shaves.
today. And I just want to give you a quick
Should I put my
reminder
face on this one too?
Sinner as an organization is supported, which means that we need your help.
And I need to build a screen also for when I have guests on.
Free nonprofit organization. If you want to help us out, you can go to justandsinner.org, go to our donate page and become a supporter. And if you want to help us out in other ways, we do have a couple things that you can download on the website there. One, we have a brochure that gives some information about what we do as an organization and the benefits that we provide to the church and to the world. And we also have a catalog of books that we publish. So if you know somebody that might be interested in giving, or your church might be interested in giving, then you can print those out or just send those PDFs to somebody so they see the benefits
That works.
of supporting us and what we do. I do have to say today the program is sponsored. We have a sponsorship from the Word of the Lord Endures Forever with Pastor Will Whedon. We're looking at this.
Oh, that audio is terrible. Okay. Let's find a different video.
The formulas that we're talking about here are things that develop particularly in Reformation studies in the 20th century and should not be used.
Where is useful charts? So useful charts just put out this video, and I'm probably going to do a pre-record of it.
When the gunman.
Hi, this is Matt Baker.
Okay, a recorded
Today,
video
we're
of
going
this.
to discuss the real origin of the 12 tribes of Israel. And by real, I mean the historical origin, according to secular academia, as opposed to the origin that's described in the Bible. Because, according to a literal reading of the Bible, the origin is simple. Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, and then Jacob had 12 sons, whose descendants went on to become
How's the sound?
tribes of Israel. However, if you're familiar with this channel, you'll know that I, like most historians, view the characters described in Genesis and Exodus as being more mythological or legendary than historical. So the question comes up, if the Jacob described in the Bible wasn't a real person, and if he didn't really have 12 children, then where did the 12 tribes come from? Well, that's exactly what we'll be exploring today.
So
But
what's
first,
interesting,
I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Speakly. Have you ever wanted to learn German, or perhaps French, Italian, Spanish? Or
and I will be able to
customize your
do
learning.
guests up, by the way, for those who catch
It was
this
written
later.
3 patriarchs around 2000 really happened. The
You know what's interesting is that he goes into some theories that I've seen in some study Bibles, and he acts as if they're new theories. I never like it when people do that. They're not new. Okay, let's hear just a little bit of this. I like what he said.
This is because a famous atheist once joked that the Bible was written by a bunch of Bronze Age goat herders. Unfortunately, the phrase stuck to the 12 tribes of Israel.
So, basically, from my understanding, before we let him say what he's going to say, is the Old Testament, the parts of it that are historical, jump back to a prehistorical state from when they found the writings, the lost writings. And in those lost writings, they mention books that just don't exist anymore. But those lost writings are very scattered and they're very few. And so you can see those lost writings and you can see the renewed writings, the found writings in the Bible, but they are recontextualized by the priestly caste who found them. So yeah, that's what's going on there. I think he's gonna try to distance that out a little bit. But everyone's allowed to their own opinion, right?
Let me start by making 2 important points about the Bible that unfortunately a lot of people don't seem to know or understand. The first is that the Bible began to be written in the Iron Age, not the Bronze Age. This is something that not only do biblical literalists get wrong, but many non-religious people as well. This is because a famous atheist once joked that the Bible was written by a bunch of Bronze Age goat herders. Unfortunately, the phrase stuck, and it ended up becoming a meme. But here's the thing. The Bible wasn't written by Bronze Age goat herders. It was written by Iron Age city dwellers. Now, you might be thinking, Bronze Age, Iron Age, what's the difference? They're both a really long time ago. Well, if you want to understand anything at all about the history of the ancient Near East, and in particular how the Bible fits into it, the difference between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age is actually quite important. Let me explain by briefly comparing the biblical account of things with what really happened. The Bible story.
I don't like to discuss with what really happened because a lot of this stuff is mystery even to archaeologists.
We then get Noah and the flood around 2500, the 3 patriarchs around 2000, and the Exodus around 1450.
His biblical dating is fine.
Although some date it later to around 1250. This is then followed by King David.
The problem with some of the dates that he's using is that it would conflict with other connections that are in the Bible that even traditionalists will admit to, like Ramses II, that kind of stuff, the Battle of Kadesh. He gets into the Battle of Kadesh later, but he doesn't really talk about it. And he also mentions the Sea People later, but he gets something wrong, which is the Israelites are included in the list of who was among the Sea People. Anyway.
Around 1000, and the divided monarchy starting around 900. Okay, let's now compare that to what really happened. The secular account dates the Earth to around 4.5.
I wish you would say with what most likely happened. That would be better.
5 billion years ago, and the emergence of Homo sapiens to around 200.
So, I know we're talking billions and millions, but it's always bothered me that in textbooks, when they get updated, they don't add a few years to every textbook. Like from 1965 or 1950 to 2024, add the 40 or 50 or 60 years, man. Just add it. Just put it in there. You know? Anyway.
1,000 years ago. However, when it comes to history, we usually say that that began around the year 3300 BCE, because that's when the very first written records were made.
So, actually, I'm going to have to disagree with him just a little bit. I've seen 45,000 as the year that history begins, because I think it's incorrect to have writing be the only record, historical record. Not as in writing isn't super important, but I think art and pottery, especially pre-writing, can be used as historical record, like documenting events. So I do think that's a little bit, I think you can push it back to the beginning of civilization if you want to start off with history and then go into the beginning of writing. That's just me.
3300 also marks the beginning of the Bronze Age, which is when we get the earliest civilizations in places like Egypt and Mesopotamia. Over the next 2,000 years, these civilizations grew larger, more advanced, and increasingly interconnected, so that by the year 1250 BCE, the ancient Near East looked something like this. Of major note is the fact that Canaan was actually controlled by Egypt at this point. So why would the Israelites escape Egypt only to run into Egyptians again in Canaan? Around 1200 BCE, something very important happened. Something that is not mentioned in the Bible. It's called the Bronze Age collapse, and it was probably far more earth-shattering than the fall of Rome. Most likely, a series of large-scale natural disasters led to drought, and then migrations and war.
So the Bronze Age collapse is actually directly related to the Sea People. And the Sea People, by the way, Sandals, if you stick around, I plan on reading some Tertullian before I go do my workout for the night. The Bronze Age collapse is connected directly with the Sea Peoples, which is, let me move this over here, which is directly connected to this over here. Well, you can't see, that's the wrong thing. Which is directly connected to this over here. So when Mycenae falls, that's a big issue there. And so the displacement starts off with the Battle of Troy. So the Battle of Troy, the historical one, not the mythological one, starts a process because all of these people, whether it's your Amazons in the steppes way over here, or if it's your other groups over here, come in to join this battle but then lose. Well, that loss and that hurt of trade is going to actually have a domino effect all the way into the Hittite kingdom collapse, or the first Hittite kingdom, I guess I should say. When that happens, actually on the lead up to it, you have letters going from Egypt to Hittia where they're just trying to correct the problem, and they can't. I don't know why they don't try to get Babylon or Assyria or any of these major powers here involved. And you have the Hyksos over here. You have the Canaanites and the war tribes of what we would now call the Israelite war tribes. Yeah, I agree completely, Sandals. So you have all that going on there, and then so when the Sea People come in, they're most likely Phoenician people that are displaced by the Latiums. When the Latians, which are the people from Troy, and the people, let's say, refugees from war, from this whole thing, so they displace the Carthaginians. So the displaced Carthaginians and Phoenicians are more than likely the Sea People. And they attack and they cause a collapse. And in the collapse, then more people become Sea People. And it just makes this amazing, if you ever look at the history of where they collapsed and how the buildings were burned and all of that, go to study Mycenae stuff. Like it's really interesting. All right, let me put this back. Bam. Okay, let's keep going.
Causing every major civilization in the Near East, including the Egyptians and the Mycenaean Greeks.
By the way, that's the video game I was just playing. So, shout out to Total War Pharaoh.
Started to attack.
You could play this.
Destroying most of the big cities. For the people living at the time, it would have felt like an apocalypse. And from that point forward, people would have thought about history in terms of the before times and the after times. And this is why the
I'll be right back. I'm going to go get a toothpick.
And the Iron Age that followed it are so important for understanding the Bible. Basically, the Bronze Age collapse explains the origin of the Israelites. I'll be talking about each individual tribe a bit later, but for now, we can say that the origin of the Israelites as a whole is directly connected to this ancient apocalyptic event. Historians and archaeologists are still working out the details, but what happened is something like this. The Sea Peoples wiped out the coastal Canaanites, but the inland Canaanites who lived in the hill country managed to survive. There, they were likely joined by other groups, such as the Habaru, who were previously seen as being rebels or outlaws.
Okay, that's it. That's that other group.
By former slaves who...
Okay, so I don't know who he named the former slaves. I can't see through the... Come back just a little bit. Okay. So let's see.
Being rebels or outlaws, and maybe even by former...
So, the slaves are more than likely the Hyksos, which is where we get the Hebrew from. And in the Hebrew, we also get Hebrew. But I've seen this group labeled Israelite. I've also seen them, if they're under the war banner of... well, I mean, this guys would be the Noah people. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he's dividing that up, but I know there's 3 different groups that could be the ancient Hebrew people altogether. There's the people that come from There's the group there's the native tribe there that's actually just Canaanite itself, that's fighting with itself, but they distance themselves from the Canaanites. And then there's the Hyksos. Now, historically, it works perfectly fine because they're all Semitic people, so genetically it lines up that this family from went all the way to Hethia. Then from Hethia comes down here and becomes a war band, or mixes with the culture. I mean, that is possible. Okay, I got a question here. Oh, dude. Yeah, no, the figurines thing. I was talking to someone real close to me, and they were saying how the amount of figurines, the value of the figurines themselves, it's not a misdemeanor. So it could actually be a huge investigation once I file. I have a few things I got to take care of, both legally and medically, on my dad's side. So it might not be like immediate right now, but yeah, it's once I file with the police, it's going to probably be a big deal. They'll just make a case file and ignore it anyway, but you know. Let's see. Do I think 2.6 million people in the Exodus? No, not at all. So the way, I have tons of these little books right over there. The way that the ancient writers used to write about combat. So you have Julius Caesar leading over 1,000 troops when it was more likely a few hundred. You have battles where people are wiped out, where, you know, from history, the very next day, those people are still big players in the rest of the world from events that happen. So no, ancient hyperbole is a very well-known thing. I don't think it was 2.6 million people. Maybe 2.6 thousand people. But the number 2.6 million, there's a million ways that can be corrupted in the translations. We don't know what the original number was, for one thing. For a second thing, we don't know what it's in reference to. Let me give you a hint. Let me give you what I'm talking about. So, measuring. We don't know what an actual measure was in ancient times. We have an idea. We think it's, this or this right here. That's what we think. We don't know. So, some of the number conversions don't work well when you're talking about pre-Arabic numbers. They're not. These are a different way of counting, a different way of calendaring, a different way of measuring. So 2.6 million could actually be 2.6 thousand. There's no way to know. It's not like they had numbers that we use today back then. But it makes for a heck of a good story. And to quote my... Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm using Streamlabs, and I can't see everything that you're saying, even though I can see that you're texting. I think 3,000 is a more reasonable number. 3,000 makes sense to me. Mind you, the group that left Egypt did not identify as Israeli people. If they were monotheists, they most likely worship Atan. Or if they were Semitics who were worshiping a singular god like El, then yeah, I mean, but you gotta remember the perspective that's being used by the writers. It's like he said in the beginning of this video, a lot of people make the mistake, and I know I've corrected almost every single debate I've had with either an atheist or with a Christian. I always have to correct when it was written, because people think that Moses is writing this stuff in the Stone Age. It just wasn't. This is Bronze Age and Iron Age writing. And if it's Iron Age writing, it's post-exile. It's looking back with what documents they had and what stories they had. And there are documents that survived. That isn't to say that those documents were accurate. We don't have a way to know. Let's say we find tomorrow an original copy from 700 BC of the Iliad. Does that suddenly make all the events that happen in the Iliad true? No. So we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because when we're trying to prove or disprove the Bible, we're arguing from our perspectives, and we're not taking into consideration the fact. That's one of the things I love about UsefulCharts, and I love about Metatron, is that while they're both religious, Metatron's a Christian, a Catholic, and UsefulCharts is Jewish, and I'm Catholic, none of us are looking at the propaganda. We're not looking at the apologist, at the apologetical answer. We're looking at what science says, that history and science and archaeology and even geography can correlate with what the biblical narrative is. I just think that's a much better approach. Let's keep going. Let's play a little bit more. I'm not going to play the whole thing. A, because like I said, I want to do a recorded video on it. And two, this is just me messing around with stream stuff, trying to figure out how everything's going. If you're new to the chat, or if you're just getting in, let me know how the view is. Let me know if you think I should add overlays. I paid $142 for this software, so I want to make sure it's worth it. So let me know.
Slaves who either escaped from Egypt itself or from Egyptian-controlled cities in Canaan. Another group who may have wound up in Canaan at this point is the Shasu, who originally came from the area that the Bible calls Midian. Because of this inscription, they are thought by some to have been the original worshippers of the god YHWH. Anyhow, once all these people ended up in the hill country...
What's interesting is that he's Jewish. I'm surprised he doesn't use Hashem more often, the name. And the name makes more sense, because that is how people will then refer to Jesus, how then people will refer to El, to all the Lord, all the different names. And they're all different layer names, so you don't say the actual name that no one knows. I am. So... It's just interesting.
Seems to have happened is that this ragtag group of tribes decided to join together and form a confederacy called Israel. The name Israel was likely used by at least one of the groups prior to the Bronze Age collapse, as evidenced by the Merneptah stele, but afterwards it referred to the entire...
See, that's what I don't understand. If he's using all the facts, I don't know why he's changing the narrative around the facts. He's clearly not trying to defend a traditional Jewish point of view or an Orthodox Jewish point of view. So I don't know what he's why he's organizing it the way that he is. If anybody does know, please tell me.
Confederacy. A confederacy that eventually evolved into a kingdom, probably around 900 BCE, which is when the Bible and the archaeological record start to line up quite nicely. Which is why the biblical story cannot be simply accepted or rejected as a whole, which is a mistake that both literalists...
Sorry, assemblies. By Metatron, I meant the YouTuber Metatron, not the creature of biblical, not the biblical Metatron, the YouTuber Metatron.
As well as some atheists make. On one hand, the literalists assume that the entire Bible is real history, and on the other hand...
See, what's interesting about literalists before Protestantism, because there were literalism. Literalism comes from the school of thought, I believe it's the Antiochian school, which is founded by Peter, but the most famous, for those that don't know, Peter founded Antioch and Rome. Antioch would have a school. Mark would found Alexandria. We're talking about the churches, not the cities. And each one of these is a pope. Each one of these is a high bishop. And some of these churches still exist today. And in Alexandria, there's another school. Anyway, so you have the Alexandrian school, you have the Antiochian school, and the Antiochian school is the literalist school. That's John Christensen's school. It is Martin Luther and Calvin who change it to an absolute literalism that even they themselves didn't ascribe to, but their ideas around sola scriptura would turn into the literalism we know today from American evangelicals, which was dying out. But now American evangelicalism is having a rebirth around the world. So it's not even American anymore, but that idea of ultra-literalism, which only was really surviving in the Americas, and American evangelicalism and fundamentalism, is now spreading throughout the world. That's some scary stuff.
Some atheists assume that the entire Bible is fairy tales. But the truth is that it's actually a bit of both, which is why knowing the difference between the Bronze Age parts and the Iron Age parts is so important.
And that's always bothered me, to be honest with you. Even if you don't believe in God, the Bible itself is a great historical resource. And so and you can use it to find archaeology. And when atheists throw it away as pure fairy tale, it drives me nuts. Because, okay, the Epic of Gilgamesh can be used to find real history. That is a myth. You have the Iliad, which combines real history with myth, and it can be used to find real history. You have the Odyssey, which is mythology, which can be used to find out real history. So if ancient mythology is useful for real history, the fact that people would just throw it out as complete nonsense is insane. For instance, you have comic books where they have the real presidents in them for that time period. You can use a comic book to find out a lot about how people communicate with each other, about social issues, about how cities look. You can use video games to recreate what cities were like. And yeah, maybe one video game isn't accurate, maybe one comic book isn't accurate, but you can compile all this information. So let's say even 100 issues of Spider-Man still exist 1,000 years from now. Those 100 issues can be used to help inform people of what were the issues and what was society like of that time period. even if no Spider-Man existed. So the arguments that I've seen people use is just drives me nuts. No, the Metatron's not Jesus, Assemblies.
To drive this point home, let me show you something that I showed in a previous video. Here is my biblical family tree chart, the one that we sell over at UsefulCharts.
By the way, I like that family tree chart. I like it a lot. But the only one that he's ever gotten me to buy is his History of Christianity chart. That thing is awesome. It is huge. It takes up a whole wall. I have my garage that I work out in. I have a weight room in the house for when it's winter or when it's too hot because I live in a hot place. It takes up an entire wall. It's a huge chart. It's not a little poster.
.com. This part corresponds to the Bronze Age, and this part to the Iron Age. Let me now put a check mark over every character from the Hebrew Bible for whom we have evidence for in the archaeological record. What do you notice? They're all from the Iron Age, because that's when the earliest authors of the Bible were living. Obviously, they were fairly well acquainted with their own time period.
By the way, if you're watching and you want to hop in, I can send you a link because I need to test that out too.
Bronze Age collapse, they could only rely on myth and legend. Now, of course, there are some traces of real history in those myths and legends, such as a memory of some sort of flood, a memory of life as nomadic shepherds, a memory of Egyptian oppression, and a memory that their god was originally connected to the land of Midian. But the bottom line is that these distant memories...
Where is Midian anyway? I can't remember that off the top of my head.
Literature meant to teach, not a history book meant to record literal events. Okay, it's now time for my second point, and that is that the Bible was written by the Judahites, not by the Israelites.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. That's a good place to stop. All right, and then we're going to go to a different format. Ba-bam. Love those advertisements. Okay, let's go to here. I like these transitions. Like I said, I don't like that it's getting my bathroom and some of my martial arts weapons in the shot, but whatever. This can all be worked out. Okay, so for the last, I don't know, let's say 10 to 20 more minutes, we are going to read together. Okay? Yeah, I don't think I can focus that camera. Let me see. What if I do this? Oh, it looks messy, but it's okay. Okay. I hope everybody can hear. I hope everyone's comfortable. Please get yourself some hot cocoa. If you're laying down, get yourself a nice blanket. If you're in the south and it's hot outside, wherever you're at, some iced tea. Tertullian's Apologetics. So my channel has become dedicated to anti-apologetics. Let's look at the first apologetic and see if he made any of the same mistakes or if he's just a lot better at it than anyone since. So when in every detail you treat us differently from all other criminals, as you do in concentrating on the one object of disassociating us from the name, for we are disassociated from it if we do what men, not Christians, do, you can gather that the gravamen of the case is not any crime but a name. This name, a certain rational agency, rival in the operations, excels with the prime motive that men may be unwilling to know for certain what they certainly know they do not know. So they believe things about us which are not proved, and they are unwilling for inquiry to be made in case the things that they prefer to have believe should be proved untrue. And the object is that the name, which is the enemy of that rival agency, may become of crimes presumed not to be proven and condemned simply on its own confession. So we are tortured when we confess. We are punished when we persist. We are acquitted when we deny. And all because... Here, hold on. My legs are hurting. I feel like standing. Okay. That's going to be a problem. Okay. So we are tortured when we confess. We are punished when we persist. We are acquitted when we deny, all because the battle is for a name. Finally, in reading the charge, why do you call the man a Christian? Why not a murderer too? If a Christian is a murderer, why not incestuous or anything else you believe us to be? Or is it that in our case, in ours alone, it shames you or vexes you to use the actual names of our crimes? If a Christian with no charge laid against him is defendant because of a name, how shocking the name must be if the charge consists of a name and nothing more. I gave myself a leash with this headset. Well, then, what does it mean when most people shut their eyes and run so blindfold into hatred of that name that even if they bear favorable testimony to a man, they throw in some detestation of the name? A good man, they say. Then another says, am I surprised that he was wise? Lucius Titius has suddenly become a Christian. Nobody reflects whether Gaius is good and Lucius is sensible just because he is a Christian, or is a Christian because he is sensible and good. They praise what they know and blame what they do not know. But their knowledge they spoil with their ignorance. Though it is fairer to prejudge what is hidden by what is manifest, to condemn in advance what is manifest because of what is hidden. In other cases, persons known before they had the name to have been vagabonds, worthless, and wicked, they condemn and praise in one breath. In the blindness of hate, they stumble into condemnation. What, a woman? That's what it says. It says, what, a woman? How wanton. How, I don't know this word, Philocium. What, a young man? How wanton, how gallant. They have become Christians, so the name follows. The Reformation as a fresh charge. Some men go further, bartering their own advantage against this hatred, content to suffer loss, provided they do not have at home what they hate. The wife is chaste now, but the husband has ceased to be jealous and has turned her out. The son is now submissive, but the father who used to bear with his ways has disinherited him. The slave is now faithful, but the master, once so gentle, has banished him from his sight. As sure as a man is reformed by the name he gives offense, the advantage does not balance the hatred felt for the Christian. And this is true today. You notice that when Christians change their ways and you get into an argument with atheists, the atheist seems to have more hatred for the Reformed Christian. Not Reformed like as in Calvinism, but Reformed as in the Christian who's actually mended his ways, than he does for the hypocritical Christian who's still committing sin. Think about that. Tell me then, if it is hatred of a name, how can you indict names? What change can lie against words unless the pronunciation of some name has a barbarous sound about it? Something like unlucky or scurrilous or lewd. Christian, so far as translation goes, is derived from anointing. Yes. And when it is mispronounced by you, Christian, for you have not even certain knowledge of the mere name, it is framed from sweetness, a kindness. So in innocent men, you hate even an innocent name. But the school is in fact hatred for the name of its founder. What novelty is it in some way of life that it gives its followers a name drawn from their teacher? Are not the philosophers called after their founders? Platonists, Epicureans, Pythagoreans? Yes. And from the place where they gathered, where they took their stands, Stoics, academics, and physicians, and in the same way from Erasicius and grammarians from Aristichus, cooks from Epicus. Yet nobody is ever offended by the avowal of a name, handed down with his teaching from the teacher. Clearly, if a man has proved the school a bad one, and its founder as bad, he will prove the bad name also to be worthy of hate because of the guilt of the school or the founder. We know this. So before you hated the name, it could have been proper first to judge the school in light of the founder, and in the founder in light of the school. But as things are, inquiry as to both and knowledge of both are allowed to slide. The name is picked out. The name is the object of attack. The school is unknown. Matthew, Matthean, Johannian, Marcion, Lucian. But the founder is also unknown. A word of itself condemns both in advance because they bear a name, not because they are convicted of anything. So much then, by way of preface, as it were, to assail the injustice that is in the general hatred felt for us. Now I will take my stand on the plea of our innocence. I will not only refute the charges brought against us, but I will turn them against those who bring them, so that in this too all may learn that they will not find in Christians what they are unaware of in themselves, and that in the same time they may blush to accuse. No, I will not say that the worst of men are accusing the best, but I will put it that they would wish and say they're equals. We will reply in detail as to the crimes we are alleged to have committed in secret, but which we can find them openly committing. matters in which we are set down as guilty, empty-handed, empty-headed, damnable, ridiculous. Truth, which is ours, meets all the charges, and yet, in the last report, the authority of the laws is cited against her, to the effect either that, after the laws have spoken, there is, they say, no reopening in the matter, or that the necessity of obedience, though you regret it, takes precedence of truth. In view of all which I meet you, as guardians of the laws, on the legal issue first, to begin, then, when you harshly cut the case short by saying your existence is illegal. When you lay it down without any more humane reconsideration, your dictum means mere force, an unjust tyranny from the citadel. If you say a thing is not lawful simply because that is your will and not because it ought not to be lawful, if because a thing ought not to be lawful and therefore you wish it not to be lawful, all will agree that what is ill done ought not to be lawful. A principle which involves a presumption that what is a right thing to do is lawful. If I find that to do good which your law has forbidden, does not the presumption imply that the law cannot forbid me to do it, since it would only rightly forbid it if it were bad? If your law has made a mistake, well, I think it was the creation of man. It did not come down from heaven. Do you wonder what a man may have made a mistake in framing a law, or returned to sense in disallowing his law? It is not the fact that the laws of Lycurgus himself were altered by the Spartans, or that this caused their author of such grief that he withdrew and condemned himself to starve to death. Yes, you yourselves as experiment every day lightens and darkens antiquity. Do you not lop and fell all that old and squalid jungle of laws? With the new axes of imperial rescripts and edicts, why those absurd Papian laws, which require people to have children at an early age, then the Julian laws require them to be married. Did not the valiant Emperor Servius clear them out, but yesterday for all their old age and authority? Yes, the laws had it of old that the debtor should, on being sentenced, be cut up by the creditors. Yet the common agreement that cruelty was erased and the punishment of death there was substituted a mark of disgrace. The confiscation of his goods that was applied meant a preference for the blush spread rather than the bloodshed. How many of your laws lie forgotten, still to be reformed? What recommends a law is like the number of its years, nor the dignity of its marks, but the equality, and nothing else. So when laws are recognized to be unjust, they are deservedly condemned, even if they do condemn. But why do we say unjust? I will go further. And if they punish a name, I will say silly. If it is deeds that punish, why in our case do they punish deeds on the score of the name alone, while in the case of the others they must have them not proved from the name but from a committed act? Drop something. I am incestuous, says they. Why do they not inquire into it? I am a murderer of babies, says they. Why do they not torture the facts for me? I committed something against a god or against Caesar, says they. Why then am I not able to clear my character and not be heard? No laws forbid the investigation of the act, of which it forbids the commission. The judge does not justly avenge unless he knows that the unlawful act was committed. Nor does the citizen faithfully obey the law if he does not know what sort of act the law avenges. A law does not owe to itself alone the sure sense of its own justice. A law, being a law, does not make it just. It owes it to those for whom it expects obedience. Counterize. A law is suspect, which is unwilling to be examined. Yes, you heard me. Yes, and bad, if without such examination it tyrannizes. A word of discussion on the origin of laws on this matter. There was an ancient decree that no god should be consecrated by an imperator without the approval of the Senate. Amarilius knows about that law in the matter of this god, Aliburnus, of his god, Aliburnus. It bears also in our case, because among you, a god's dignity depends on a man's decision. Unless a god pleases a man, he shall not be a god at all. In fact, man must be gracious to God. It was in the age of Tiberius, then, that the Christian name went out into the world, and he referred to the Senate the news which he had received from Syria, Palestine, which had revealed the truth of Christ, divinity. He did this exercising his prerogative and giving it his endorsement. The Senate had not approved beforehand and so rejected it. Caesar held his opinion and threatened danger to the accusers of the Christians. Consult your histories, he said. There you will find that Nero was the first to rage with the imperial sword against this school in the very hour of its rise in Rome. But we glory, nothing less than glory, to have had such a man to inaugurate our condemnation. This will be the last page. One who knows Nero can understand that unless a thing were good, and very good at that, it was not condemned by Nero. Domitian, too, who was a good deal of Nero, in cruelty attempted it. But being in some degree human, he soon stopped what he had begun, and restored those he had banished. Such are ever our persecutors, men unjust, impious, fools, men whom you yourselves are accustomed to condemn. And yet those who you condemn you follow in their condemnation of us. But from among so many emperors, down to today, men wise in things divine and human, pick me out one who warred against the Christians. We, however, on the other side, produce a protector, if you will refer to the letter of Aurelius, most venerable of emperors, in which he testifies that the great drought in Germany was broken by rain obtained through the prayers of Christians, who it chanced were among his soldiers. Aurelius, indeed, did not openly remove the penalty from Christians, but in other ways openly, he got rid of it by attaching a condemnation to their accusers, and a harsher one too. What sort of laws, then, are those which are only used against us by the impious? the unjust, the fool, the fierce, the vain, the demented. Laws which Trajan in part frustrated by forbidding Christians to be sought out. Laws which never a Hadrian, though the explorer of everything curious enforced, never a Vespian, though he warred against the Jews, never a Pius, never a Varus. Yet I should think the worst of men might more easily be judged worthy of extermination by the best of men, their enemies, you might say, rather than by their fellows. All right. That was today's stream. I hope you had a good time. I know my audience was small. I know some people tried to hop in as I was playing around with the settings. I will review this stream later on. And if everything recorded well, this should be the format